Welcome back, everyone, to today's video. In this episode, we're going to follow the journey of a young man as he takes on an extraordinary challenge building an underground house inside a steep cliff face. This isn't just about construction, it's about creativity, patience, and the spirit of adventure. Every stage of the process reveals his ingenuity, from carving out the foundation to shaping the interior, all while working in harmony with the rugged mountain landscape. The very first step in his ambitious project is to create a staircase, a vital structure that will allow him to climb up the steep cliff face and access the area where the underground house will take shape. Without a solid staircase, the journey up and down would be too dangerous, so he begins by carefully selecting strong, durable wooden beams. These beams will serve as the foundation of his staircase, holding the weight of both the structure and himself as he works. He saws the beams into manageable sections, cutting them down into upright posts that will act as supports, and then into flat pieces that will become the steps. Each cut is deliberate, ensuring that the dimensions are precise and that the wood will fit together properly when assembled. Once the raw pieces are prepared, he moves on to the detailed work-shaping joints on the steps, carving out notches so that they can interlock with the vertical posts. To strengthen the connections even further, he drills holes through the wood and secures each joint with sturdy wooden pegs. By driving the pegs into place, he locks the components together without the need for nails or metal fasteners, staying true to a natural and traditional building method. Piece by piece, the staircase begins to take form, rising upward from the base of the cliff. With the staircase complete, he climbs carefully up the cliffside until he reaches the perfect spot to begin his underground dwelling. There, against the steep wall of earth, he marks out a large circle, outlining the entrance that will soon become the doorway to his hidden home. Once the boundary is set, he takes up his tools and starts to carve into the cliff, slowly digging deeper and deeper into the soil and rock. Each stroke of his tool opens up more space, transforming the solid wall into a hollow chamber that will serve as the heart of his underground living space. While digging, he carefully carves out a large platform from the earth itself, shaping it into a raised surface that will later serve as his bed. On one side of the chamber, he begins carving out a smaller hollow in the wall. This will become the kitchen space, a simple but essential area where he can prepare food inside the safety of his underground home. With careful strikes, he digs the recess deeper, shaping it into a sturdy fire pit that can hold the heat of a cooking fire without weakening the structure around it. But he knows that fire brings smoke, and without a proper way to release it, the air inside will quickly become unbreathable. To solve this, he steps outside the cliff face and carefully chooses a point on the outer wall that lines up with his indoor fire pit. From there, he digs straight through the earth, creating a narrow passage that connects the pit to the open air. Storage is essential, especially in a compact underground home, so he turns his attention to the walls themselves. With steady hands, he starts carving small niches directly into the earthen walls, one by one. Next, he focuses on comfort and warmth, something every underground dwelling needs. Beneath the edge of the raised bed platform, he carefully digs out a small recess that will serve as a heating chamber. This clever design allows warmth to rise directly toward the bed, keeping the sleeping area cozy even during cold nights. Once the hearth-like cavity is shaped, he turns to the idea of controlling it safely. Using his tools, he carves narrow grooves along the edges of the opening, forming rails that will later hold a sliding door. This simple but ingenious system will allow him to cover the chamber when it's not in use. With the heating chamber prepared, he turns his attention to crafting its essential components. First, he gathers a batch of clay from the surrounding area, kneading and mixing it until it reaches the right consistency, firm enough to hold its shape, yet pliable enough to mold. From this mixture, he begins shaping pieces that will form the sturdy foundation of the small cooking and heating system. Carefully, he pours the clay into a simple mold, pressing and smoothing it to ensure even thickness. This section will become part of the fire base, strong enough to withstand heat while supporting the weight of burning wood or coal. Once one part is completed, he continues with the others, slowly building up the foundation piece by piece. For the fireplace beneath the bed, he creates two special clay blocks with carved grooves along their edges. These grooves are designed as sliding tracks, a clever detail that will allow him to install a door later. By fitting the door neatly into these rails, he can open or close the chamber with ease, controlling airflow, trapping heat, and keeping the space clean and safe. To finish the ventilation system, he turns to wood. He selects a bundle of small, straight branches and carefully sharpens one end of each, giving them sturdy points that can be driven into the earth. As the wooden stakes close in around the passage, they form a protective frame, gradually taking shape into a chimney-like structure. This simple yet effective design ensures that the soil will not collapse into the hole while also guiding smoke upward and away from the living space. The ring of wood, tightly packed and reinforced, transforms the rough vent into a functional chimney that blends seamlessly with the natural surroundings. With the wooden frame of the chimney in place, he moves on to strengthen and seal it. Gathering more clay, he begins coating the entire structure, pressing the material firmly around the sharpened wooden stakes. Layer by layer, the clay fills the gaps, binding the stakes together and creating a solid outer shell. Once covered completely, the rough wooden frame is transformed into a sturdy chimney that can withstand both heat and weather. But he doesn't stop there. To give the structure a more finished and refined appearance, he takes a small tool and begins etching delicate lines across the clay surface. After completing the fireplace frame, he began adding the final details for functionality. He took the prepared grill and carefully mounted it in place so that he could place pots, pans, or food directly above the fire. Along the side wall, where he had carved a storage niche, he places a neat pile of dry firewood, stacking the logs so they are within easy reach whenever he needs them. With everything ready, he places a few pieces of wood into the hearth itself and strikes a spark. Slowly, the fire catches, flames flicker into life and filling the chamber with warmth and a faint glow. He now turns his attention to installing the sliding door system he had carefully planned earlier. First, he takes the pair of wooden rails he had prepared in advance and sets them firmly into the grooves carved along the edge of the fireplace opening. Next, He searches for flat pieces of stone that are both strong and thin enough to be shaped into panels. After selecting several suitable slabs, he saws and trims them patiently, reducing each one into thinner, even sheets. The work is slow and demanding, but precision is key. These stone panels must be smooth enough to glide along the rails without breaking. Once finished, he fits the panels into the grooves, sliding them back and forth to test their movement. To reinforce the seal, he presses small stones into the clay, wedging them into place so that the mud grips the rails securely while also adding weight and stability. Layer by layer, he smooths the surface, sealing every empty space until the rails are locked solidly into the wall. This simple but effective method ensures that the stone doors will not shift or loosen over time, making the fireplace not only functional, but also durable. With the heating system complete, he begins preparing another important material for his underground home ash. He heads out into the surrounding forest, gathering piles of dry leaves that have fallen to the ground. Moving from tree to tree, he collects armfuls of brittle leaves, their crisp texture perfect for burning. He arranges the leaves into a controlled fire, carefully lighting them so that the flames spread evenly. The dry leaves ignite quickly, crackling as they burn and releasing a faint, earthy smell into the air. Once the fire has burned down completely, he is left with a mound of soft gray ash, but he doesn't use it as it is. To make it more refined and useful, he carefully sifts the ash through a fine mesh screen, shaking it gently until only the softest powder falls through. The larger chunks and impurities are left behind, while the fine ash collects below a smooth, almost flour-like material that will be much easier to work with. He then mixes this fine ash powder with wet mud, kneading the two together until the textures blend into a thick, sticky paste. With steady hands, he scoops portions of the mixture and rolls them into compact lumps, shaping them into uniform pieces. Once enough pieces are shaped, he places them near a fire and allows the heat to slowly bake the moisture out. Gradually, the lumps harden as they dry, turning from soft clay-like balls into firm, durable blocks. He collects it in large amounts and spreads it out, breaking apart the clumps until the texture becomes fine and smooth, almost like sand. This careful preparation ensures that no rough stones or debris remain, leaving behind a clean base material ready for mixing. He takes the baked ash clumps he had made earlier and crushes them with steady pressure, grinding them down into a fine, soft powder. The ash, once rough and lumpy, is now transformed into a smooth substance that can easily blend with the soil. When combined, the dry earth and powdered ash create a balanced mixture, each element enhancing the other's strength and durability. Finally, he pours in water and begins kneading the blend, working it thoroughly with his hands. With the mortar ready, he finally turns the interior of his underground home. Taking handfuls of the mixture, he begins spreading it across the rough earthen walls, pressing it firmly into every corner and crevice. The sticky blend clings tightly, filling gaps and strengthening the structure from within. He works patiently, coating the entire chamber layer by layer. Each stroke of his hand smooths the surface a little more, transforming the jagged soil walls into even, solid planes. The once raw interior slowly takes on a finished appearance, no longer just a dugout hollow, but a true living space. Every nook and cranny receives his attention. He carefully lines the edges, smoothing them out so the walls flow seamlessly from one section to the next. The rough texture of the earth is replaced by the clean, firm surface of plaster, giving the room both strength and beauty. Under his hands, the underground chamber begins to feel less like a cave and more like a crafted home. While waiting for the freshly plastered walls of his underground home to dry, he doesn't waste any time. He heads back into the forest, where he carefully selects sturdy logs and saws them into manageable lengths. These wooden pieces will soon become an important tool for his next stage of work. Using his saw and chisel, he carefully marks each beam, then carves precise notches and grooves along their edges. These joints are the key to connecting the pieces together without relying on nails or metal. Every cut must be accurate, every angle exact. By creating these interlocking joints, he is not just preparing wood, he is laying the foundation for furniture and fixtures that will last, pieces that can be built strong enough to support daily life inside the underground home. He begins assembling the logs into a simple but practical wooden stand. He drives the posts firmly into the ground, creating a stable frame, and then adds crossbars to complete the structure. The result is a wooden rack strong enough to hold logs horizontally across its surface. This makeshift workbench becomes a valuable aid. It allows him to rest beams securely in place so that he can saw them with precision and ease. What might have been a tiring and awkward task on the ground is now far more efficient, thanks to this clever construction. With the joints prepared, he begins refining the wood even further. Taking the rough logs he has cut, he carefully splits and trims them down into straight, square beams. Using his hand tools, he planes the surfaces again and again, shaving away the rough outer layer until the wood feels clean and polished. With the beams shaped and smooth, he now turns his attention to creating planks. Setting a sturdy log across the wooden rack, he grips his saw firmly and begins slicing through the wood with steady strokes. Bit by bit, thin sheets of timber peel away from the solid log, each one cut with care to maintain an even thickness. Unlike the heavy beams, these thin planks are lightweight and versatile, perfect for making shelves, flooring, or panels for furniture. With a stack of thin planks prepared, he begins working on a more intricate task. On the flat surfaces of the boards, he carefully draws a series of small rectangular patterns, alternating their placement on opposite sides of the wood. Each mark is made with precision, serving as a guide for the cuts to follow. Once the layout is complete, he takes his chisel and begins carving. Bit by bit, he removes the wood inside the marked areas, creating a sequence of notches and gaps along the edges of the planks. The work requires both patience and accuracy too deep, and the board might weaken. Too shallow, and the pieces won't fit together properly. Slowly, the plain wooden boards are transformed into a set of interlocking pieces, their alternating notches resembling puzzle blocks. With the puzzle-like planks now carefully shaped, he takes the next step to protect and refine them. He prepares a container of clear varnish, a glossy finish that will not only highlight the natural grain of the wood, but also shielded from moisture and wear. With the planks now polished and gleaming under their protective coat, he carries them carefully into the underground chamber. Each piece has been prepared with patience, and now it is time to put them to use as part of the home's finishing touches. Starting at the base of the circular wall, he places the first board firmly against the earthen surface. Then, one by one, he aligns the others right next to it, pressing them close together so that no gaps remain. Slowly, the rough curve of the underground wall begins to disappear, hidden behind a smooth wooden surface. He works steadily upward, adding layer after layer, fitting each plank neatly above the last. The once raw, soil-lined chamber gradually transforms into a warm, inviting interior wrapped in wood. The natural grain of the varnished planks catches the light, giving the underground space a glow that feels both crafted and cozy. By the time he reaches the top, the entire rounded wall is sealed with wood, creating not just protection for the earthen structure, but also a beautiful home-like finish. What was once only a carved-out cliffside now feels like a true living space, solid, warm, and carefully designed. With the wooden walls in place, he begins crafting the first piece of furniture for his underground home, a table. For the tabletop, he doesn't simply use plain boards. Instead, he takes the puzzle-like planks he carefully shaped earlier, with their interlocking notches, and arranges them side by side. Piece by piece, they fit together seamlessly, forming a strong and beautifully patterned surface. He turns his attention to the supporting parts. He prepares folding legs, designed to be practical and compact. Each component is measured precisely, cut cleanly, and smooth to ensure stability. Using strong adhesive, he fixes the legs to the underside of the tabletop, reinforcing the joints to make sure they can bear weight. The foldable design means the legs can be tucked away neatly whenever the table is not in use. The result is more than just a table. It is a clever space-saving creation, combining function, craftsmanship, and smart design to perfectly suit life in an underground home. Finally, he positions the entire structure against one of the wooden-lined walls of the underground chamber. With careful adjustments, he secures the frame so that the table can be folded up into the wall itself, disappearing when not needed, and saving precious space inside the compact room. Next, he turns his attention to one of the most important features of the underground home, the front door. To begin, he measures the entrance carefully, ensuring the frame will match the exact size of the rounded opening at the front of the house. With precise cuts and strong beams, he constructs a solid wooden frame that fits neatly into place, forming the boundary of the doorway. Instead of leaving it as a single panel, he decides to divide the structure into 4 smaller sections. This design not only strengthens the frame, but also gives him flexibility for building a door that is both functional and visually appealing. He begins by focusing on the first of the 4 panels within the doorway. For this section, he keeps the design simple and secure, fastening sturdy wooden planks tightly together until the panel is completely sealed. This solid section reinforces the strength of the door, acting as a protective barrier against the outside. Moving to the next panel, however, he adds something more creative. Instead of closing it off, he crafts a small independent window. Using carefully cut boards, he builds a separate frame within the panel and installs a round wooden shutter that can pivot on a central axis. With this design, the window can be opened and closed by rotating it, allowing light and fresh air to enter the underground home whenever needed. With the panels of the door prepared, he now focuses on fitting the entire structure into place. Taking up his saw once more, he carefully trims along the outer edges of the wooden frame, shaving it down little by little until the shape matches perfectly with the rounded entrance of the underground hole. Once satisfied with the fit, he positions the frame at the entrance. With steady hands, he slides it into place, pressing it firmly against the earthen wall. At last, he turns his attention to the central feature of the entrance, the main door itself. With the frame securely installed, he carefully positions the large wooden panel he has crafted, aligning it with the doorway. Unlike a simple hinge design, this main door is built to rotate, a unique style that makes it both striking and functional. For the final touch, he decides to make the entrance not only secure, but also convenient. He begins building one last staircase, this time with a clever design that allows it to fold away when not in use. Each step is joined with precise hinges, allowing the staircase to collapse neatly upward or unfold smoothly downward. He tests it several times, folding and unfolding the structure until it moves with ease and locks firmly in place. With this final addition, the project is complete. From the rotating main door to the hidden fireplace, from the polished wooden walls to the foldable staircase, every detail of the underground dwelling reflects ingenuity, patience, and craftsmanship. And with that, his journey here has ended. Thank you for accompanying him on this journey. If you like, don't forget to leave a like and a subscription so you don't miss the next videos. Goodbye and see you again.